Let's go to the pass catchers on the love list. George Pickens against the Giants. Matthew, you brought up Jackson Dart against Dallas. Well, if this game goes into a shootout, that means George Pickens should be able to get his as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, this Giants secondary has struggled quite a bit. They give up the 5th highest completion rate on passes of 15 or more air yards, right? You know, in essence, that's a stat which tells you what you know if you watch the games. You can throw deep on the New York Football Giants. In fact, they've given up at least 14 fantasy points to a wide receiver in every game this year except for one. And so George Pickens, who is their deep threat, who they will take deep shots to, he's my wide receiver 6 this week, as you see it right there. Him and my guy 8s. I have 8s at 4. I call them 8s, CeeDee Lamb. But we expect the Cowboys to sort of have their way offensively with New York.
Let's go to Michael Wilson here, Jay. It's pretty simple. No Marvin Harrison. He's still dealing with that heel injury. Michael Wilson needs 93 yards for a 1,000-yard season. We know what this guy can do, especially when Marv is down.
Yeah, I think also, like, the team will know about that, and they'll want to get him to 1K. With no Marvin Harrison Jr. going up against a Rams secondary that has been pretty solid this year, but I don't think is absolutely infallible, particularly given the scope where if the Niners win tomorrow, then the Rams have much less to play for. They'll be locked into the 6th seed, and I don't think that Stafford will be playing at that point, and the Rams may miss starters. So, yeah, there's scope for this to be a bit of a carnival game if it gets there. And then the flip side is that if the Rams are playing to win, well, they're probably going to get up big. Then Michael Wilson will have garbage time, and he's got one of the great garbage time architects of all of our time in Jacoby Brissett to get him the ball.
Okay, Gemma says Michael Wilson legacy game loading, especially in garbage time, Matthew, where he's been king and Trey McBride has been king all season long.
Yeah, I mean, look, Michael Wilson in the first matchup against the Rams, this was week 14, again, MHJ was out. Michael Wilson went 11 for 142 and 2, and certainly the Rams were trying in that game. So, I mean, like, he's got in games in which Harrison has not played this year, he's averaging a 33% target share. It becomes the greatest wide receiver of all time. And it's going to be crazy at the end of the year to look at where Michael Wilson's stats, especially because it's all come basically within the last, month, where Michael Wilson overall statistically compares with a lot of big name wide receivers that he has statistically outproduced, because that's how insane the last 4 to 6 weeks have been for Michael Wilson. It's sort of crazy to think about back in draft day. You're like, oh, should I draft, Ladd McConkey or Michael Wilson? And you're like, wait, what? And you're like, you'd have been better off with Michael Wilson, Garrett Wilson. Well, I mean, not even getting the guys that get injured like the Malik Neighbors of the world, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how much can change over the course of a season. This one from Troy, 12019. Jameson Williams, assuming Amon-Ra is out, Stephon Diggs, or Luther Burden for a Week 18 championship. Thanks, Mr. Berry.
Yeah, I think Diggs for me, right? I mean, just because they also, to your point, they want to get Drake May the MVP. They are going to be feeding Stephon Diggs. They're so beat up at the wide receiver position. We saw what Diggs did last week as well. There's just a lot of assumptions going on there. Look, I mean, I think if Amon-Ra is out, J-Mo should have a big game here, and we've already talked about Luther Burden a lot on this show, but I currently have Diggs ranked the highest of those 3 players.
Yeah, the other thing with Jameson Williams, too, is that Amon-Ra St. Brown did actually practice yesterday, which seems surprising given how he came out of the game against the Vikings. But I think it speaks to the fact that Dan Campbell doesn't really want to win this game, and they might push him through it. And if that's the case, then if he does play, then Diggs is certainly the most appealing option of those 3.
Let's get to a tight end in Colston Loveland. We keep going back to this Detroit defense and the matchups there. And Matthew, no Rome Odunze. He's been dealing with this foot injury for a long time. Colston Loveland, a top 5 tight end for you this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, look, last week in a gotta-have-it game against the Niners, and obviously they didn't get it, but it's not due to the fault of Colston Loveland. 25% target share, 85% route participation. He was out there quite a bit. Cole Kmet, who also, you mentioned no Rome Odunze, also no Olamide Zaccheaus, which is a sneaky absence there because they like him a lot in the middle of the field. And so Colston Loveland, who continues to emerge in this offense, be a bigger part and earn the trust of Caleb Williams. It's a great matchup with Detroit, by the way. Lions allow 15.5 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. That is 4th most in the NFL over the last 4 weeks. So it's a really nice matchup here for Colston Loveland.
Going to the hate list for pass catchers, Michael Pittman Jr. against the Texans. This one's pretty simple, Matthew. It was just hard to trust rookie quarterback Riley Leonard in this spot to get him the ball effectively.
Yeah, I mean, look, whether it's Phillip Rivers or now it's Riley Leonard, like the fact of the matter is that since week 10, Michael Pittman has one game with more than 32 receiving yards. And then you mentioned this matchup against Houston, right? No team allows a lower catch rate to opposing wide receivers than the Houston Texans, right? No team gives up. I mean, like, pick a stat. There's a lot of very good ones around the Texans defense. By the way, the Colts have the third lowest implied team total in week 18. Pittman has generally, throughout his career, never been a big touchdown scorer. He's always been more of a floor volume guy. And I just don't know that he gets that volume with Riley Leonard under center against the Texans defense, who not only are playing for postseason seeding, but they are also playing for individual awards. They've got some defensive players that have legit shots at some postseason hardware.
Yeah, kind of the Riley Leonard that I saw in Jacksonville when he took over for Jones after Jones did the Achilles. Now, I understand it's a tough spot for him to come in without a week of preparation, but the guy I saw could move around.
Yes.
Has an arm, but one, was very inaccurate, and then two, did not seem on the same page with his receivers at all.
Right, and whether that's a reps thing or, this is somebody that does need more time as a passer. And this goes all the way back to after he transferred to Notre Dame from Duke, where if you watch Notre Dame's offense, and they had a great year that year, they almost used Riley Leonard as this battering ram quarterback very often. So if you're asking him to step into an NFL game as a rookie, he's going to have to lean on his legs as much as he can, which could be good for him, but not the best for the entire pass-catching group, Matthew.
Look, it's an NFL game. Anything can happen, and they'll coach him up. But just think about this. Shane Steichen and the Colts coaching staff and the Colts front office that had seen Riley Leonard in practice all year long said, who's giving us a better shot to win? 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, who hasn't played football in 5 years. That should tell you everything you need to know. With their season on the line, they decided to go get a guy out of retirement from 5 years ago than rather give Riley Leonard a shot. And so, again, Riley Leonard ultimately turned into a nice player in this league, but in a start against Houston, you just don't have a ton of confidence here.
To be fair, I think weirdly, even though they went 0-3, I think Steichen was somewhat vindicated by that decision because I thought Phil Rivers played remarkably well given the circumstances. And they were very close to beating Seattle and Jacksonville, which would, I think, have made this a play-in for the playoffs.
I think he surpassed anyone's expectations.
For sure.
Yeah, where they showed, yes. And it was also, it felt like they needed an adult that could manage the game.
Yep.
It's not like you looked at the box score and it's like 230 yards for Phil Rivers, but the way he can get everybody lined up, put them in effective drives. They were able to really lean on their best player in Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, I'm with you all the way on that one. Say Alec Pierce is back on this team next year.
Yep.
Which pass catcher is drafted the earliest? Because we could factor Tyler Warren into that group.
Yeah, I think it's it's probably Tyler Warren because of value relative to position. Tyler Warren may well be a top 5 tight end, particularly if I would say the median expectation is that Daniel Jones comes back and is the starter. In week 1, we saw the rapport that he had with Tyler Warren. Of the receivers, I would, if they're all back, they got to re-sign Alec Pierce, but I would put Pierce 1.
Me too.
And Downs and Pittman are much of a muchness. But I think that Warren is the guy who goes first.
Yeah, what do you think,
hey,
Matthew?
Connor?
Yeah.
I agree with that, by the way. I agree with Tyler Warren, although Alec Pierce will be a sexy sleeper for many, including me, next year. One thing I will say, though, I think it's interesting. It's sort of crazy to think about. I totally agree with you on Phillip Rivers. That, and maybe it's just because everyone is expecting a disaster, and it wasn't. It felt like the defense, honestly, lost those games more than Phillip Rivers. He could have done a little bit more, sure, but, he was beyond competent. Phillip Rivers, as he sits here today at 44 years old, there are not 64 quarterbacks in the NFL that are better than Phillip Rivers right now at 44. So, I'm talking about in terms of the team starters and the team's backups, and that includes the guys that are going to be coming in from college after this year. Is Phillip Rivers in the NFL next year? Do the Colts say, hey, Phillip, do you want to come stick around and be a backup and earn a backup salary for a year? And I don't know. he chose this. He chose the situation because he is personally very close with Steichen. He knows the offense. He was actually running the offense on the high school team he coaches. But like, I don't think it's the craziest idea if Philip Rivers, now that he's gotten out there, he's gotten hit a few times, he's gotten the adrenaline back. He said after his last post game that he doesn't regret coming out of retirement or delaying the Hall of Fame vote by 5 more years or whatever. Like, I guess I'm saying that I think there's a non-zero chance that Philip Rivers is back in the NFL next year in some role.
He said he's done.
Yeah, he went on the Kay Adams show and said that he's definitively done. I mean, you never know. I would say if he's back in the league, it's probably more in like a coaching type of role. But I agree, Matthew. He's clearly, I mean, it's not even just like top 64. Like the guy who was out there the past 3 games is like a top 40 quarterback in the league, I think. He'd be an upper end backup to be able to do what he was able to do in those 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, could somebody else now be motivated to do this, though? If there was a unique situation with an organization they played for?
Tom Brady would be the best quarterback on the Raiders right now by margin.
I mean, Tom Brady would be
there's no doubt.
Best quarterback on a lot of teams right now.
Yeah, and I'm also like, by the way, didn't Philip Rivers say he was definitively done 5 years ago? Like, never say never.
Yeah.
Never say never.
They absolutely change.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.